Okay, let's dive into one of the most powerful, complex, and frankly, unsettling works of modern literature, Fyodor Dostoevsky's Notes from Underground. We're going to try and break down the mind of its narrator and explore the pretty radical ideas that, yeah, some say changed philosophy forever. So, right from the very first line, Dostoevsky just throws us right into the deep end. Our narrator introduces himself with this jarring confession. It immediately sets up a voice that's contradictory, full of self-loathing, and somehow you just can't look away. So, who is this person? Let's find out.
All right, first up, meet the underground man. Look, to really get this novella, we have to get inside the head of its bizarre protagonist. He isn't just telling us a story. His very consciousness is the story. So what's his deal? He's this unnamed, retired civil servant, and he's living in what he calls the underground. Now, that's partly a literal place, a shabby apartment in St. Petersburg, but it's also a metaphor, right? It's about a complete withdrawal from society into a life of just pure, unfiltered, and honestly agonizing thought. And this gets to the absolute core conflict that's just tearing him apart. He despises what he calls the man of action. You know, that simple person who just does things, who doesn't overthink it. But at the exact same time, he is so jealous of them. His own hyper-consciousness, this curse of analyzing every single motive to death, it leaves him completely and utterly paralyzed. So next, we're getting into the philosophical heart of the book. And this is huge. The underground man isn't just moping around complaining about his life. He is waging an all-out war on the biggest scientific and social ideas of the 19th century. See, at the time, there was this really popular idea floating around called rational self-interest. The thinking was, if you could just figure out what was in people's best interest, they would automatically do it. That society could be basically perfected through logic. Science could solve everything. Well, our narrator absolutely hates this idea. I mean, he finds it deeply insulting. He believes it strips away everything that makes us human. All our impulses, our irrationality, our freedom to choose badly. He argues that a person's most prized possession is their own free will. And his number one target for this whole idea is symbolized by the Crystal Palace. Now, this was a real building in London at the time, a total marvel of progress and modernity. But for our narrator, it becomes this powerful metaphor for that perfect, logical utopia, a flawless world that he sees as nothing more than a beautiful prison. So why? Why would anyone reject a perfect world? Why would you stick your tongue out at perfection? And the narrator's answer is pretty shocking. He says you do it simply to prove that you can. He argues that a human being will sometimes choose suffering, choose chaos over comfort and order, just to prove that they are a person and not, a piano key. Okay, so that's the big idea, the philosophy. But the second half of the book is where we see what this actually looks like in real life. We get a series of these deeply humiliating memories from his past. And believe me, it gets messy. Take this first story. An officer just moves him aside in a tavern. It's a tiny, everyday kind of slight. But for the underground man, oh no. This tiny insult just blossoms into a multi-year obsession. And his grand plan for revenge after all that time, it basically boils down to bumping into the guy on the street. And when he finally does it, the feeling is just completely empty. It's a perfect example of his paralysis and just how futile his intellectual pride really is. Then there's the dinner party he crashes. He's desperate, you can tell. He desperately wants to connect with his old schoolmates, but he just can't stop himself from being hostile and awkward. He swings wildly between feeling like he's a misunderstood genius and a worthless insect. And in the end, he just ensures his own isolation. This all leads to the most crucial and honestly, the most devastating encounter in the whole book. He meets Liza, a young prostitute, and for a fleeting moment, it seems like he might be capable of genuine empathy. He gives this beautiful, really moving speech, painting a picture of a better future for her. And this is the heartbreaking part, when Liza actually shows up at his apartment, vulnerable, looking for that connection he offered, he just panics. Faced with real emotion, he absolutely cannot handle it. He turns on her, cruelly insults her, and pushes her away just so he can feel powerful again. He completely sabotages the one real human connection he almost made. So what does this all add up to? Let's try to pull together the philosophy and these incredibly painful stories to really understand the central paradox of the underground man. He's a man just made of contradictions, isn't he? He craves what we all crave: love, respect, a sense of meaning. But his intense self-awareness and his pride make it absolutely impossible for him to ever accept them. And this brings us to a really crucial point. His ultimate act of freedom becomes the freedom to choose his own misery. And that, right there, is the true meaning of the underground. It's not just some basement apartment. It's a psychological state. It's a retreat into his own mind that, yeah, it protects him from the world, but it also traps him in this endless loop of self-torture. So why? Why are we still talking about this bitter, isolated man more than 150 years later? Well, it's because his ideas were nothing short of revolutionary. I mean, think about it. Long before the term existentialism even existed, Dostoevsky was wrestling with its core questions. This book is basically a direct ancestor to the works of thinkers like Nietzsche and Sartre, who would later explore these very same themes: radical freedom, the burden of consciousness, and the whole search for meaning in a world that maybe doesn't have any.
At the end of the day, Notes from Underground holds a mirror up to the darker, more rational parts of our own human nature. It's this powerful reminder that we are not simple creatures of logic, and that our self-awareness, which we think of as our greatest gift, can also be the source of our greatest suffering.
And so, the book leaves us with this central, really haunting question. The underground man fights for what he believes is total, absolute freedom, and it costs him everything. It really forces us to ask ourselves, is that kind of freedom really worth the price of our own humanity?